This is our last session together. I don't know if had a chance or not, but the post-test, so to speak, the to-dos are similar to how we started the community of practice. So we were asking our participants to draw what research or information looked like now, to then write a paragraph to describe it, and then also consider reviewing the informed consent document, and then attached to that is the final survey of confidence. These are the same things everybody did at the beginning of the community of practice. And so if folks are willing to do that, this is in effect our post-test to see how things changed over time. So Kristen, if you're interested in doing that and willing to do that, we'd appreciate it. And for those folks who are logging on after the fact to see what we discussed, if you would be willing to do it, that would be great.
Yeah, I did take the post-test, but I did not do the exercise of drawing and describing, so I can go back and do that.
All righty, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. So those are the to-dos, sort of. Dustin, there you are. Hi, Dustin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We were just taking a look at, we were just starting.
Okay.
So I was just talking about our post-test that we were asking people to do, which was same thing we asked you to do when you started, which was to draw what does teaching research and or information literacy look like, to describe it, writing a page or so about how you teach research and or information literacy skills to students in your courses, and then that online survey, it's your survey of confidence that Jesse and I put out there. So if you're willing to do that, it'd be great. It's our post-test data to see how we did. So thank you. So today it's sharing time. We're gonna wrap up. So what progress have you made with the RSD and Framework for Information Literacy?
Well, I know for me, the course that I have been concentrating on in this looks totally different than how it did when I started. And so I just finished the semester with the two students that were in the section that I was teaching of it this semester. And they both said they really liked it, and especially mentioned the autonomy, the freedom that they had to do whatever they wanted, really. And they actually got some funding to do their experiment from the department. So they had the experience of writing a funding proposal and getting that funded, which is a really cool experience to have in a class.
That is very cool. Very cool indeed. So, Kristen, how about your library perspective?
So I did administer a survey to faculty who are teaching, we call them here capstone classes. They're culminating in a discipline or in a major classes that demonstrate accomplishment. And I used the RSD to create the survey questions, asking them that in this kind of culminating class, where did they see students struggle with research? So was it, I can't remember, actually I can bring up my big categories, but the RSD is really nice for helping to make the research skills concrete, right? So I asked if they had difficulty with initiating research. I had 3 questions under there. Conducting the research, had 3 questions under there. Applying the research, so that gets at that, synthesizing and evaluating credibility, and then finally managing research. So I'll see what my results look like, but it was nice. It was just nice to have such a great tool that helped me. I had said way back in the introduction that a lot of times library conversations are very library centric, and we use a lot of lingo that means something to us but not to our constituents. And I felt like when I was administering the survey, I was using concepts and languages that faculty understood. So hopefully my results bear that out.
So, and how are you going to use the results? What will you do with it?
Well, I didn't get to do the turnaround with the IRB and all that stuff. So unfortunately, I won't be able to publish anything out of this, but I hope to just use it locally to make a case that I think right now information literacy is ignored because it's kind of this separate thing that faculty think they don't have a part in, and that just somehow students manage to learn this by their senior year. And so I'm assuming that the results are going to show a lot of students struggle even at their senior year, and for us to really make a case for the closer collaboration. And yes, we are a part of critical thinking. I think there's a real false dichotomy between information literacy and critical thinking.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm having trouble with as we end the semester is that I'm starting to get the framework for information literacy, and I feel like I'm almost leaving the RSD framework behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost need to go back and kind of take a look at that and figure out how I'm going to integrate the two meaningfully.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting. I am by no means an expert on the framework for information literacy, and I have a long way to go. But as I start talking to my students about research, I feel like I'm leaving the research skill development framework behind and only talking in terms of framework for information literacy. And in some ways that's good, and in some ways that's bad. But so I really need to think about how I can integrate those both meaningfully. And I've made students purposefully go back and say, now which frame are you working on when you do this? And I've had them reflect on it, but then I've neglected to do that with the RSD framework. So I think I really need to go back and visit that. So
yeah, I'm definitely concentrating a lot of my efforts more on the RSD. I also did I did a workshop with composition faculty last week, and we used a lot of RSD activities, and I used that as a basis for conversation. I didn't use the IL framework.
So
yeah.
And I don't know, Dustin, are you able to bounce between the two easily, or do you concentrate on one and then the other?
I definitely feel a lot more comfortable with the RSD. I think so where I see the framework for information literacy coming into play, so I think they're definitely not completely separable, but I see the information literacy coming into play a lot more when students are trying to gather information, kind of see what the background is as they're in the planning phase. And maybe it would be nice if maybe if they got some results that they weren't expecting, they would go back to it. But in the scope of my class, usually after they've planned the experiment, they end up getting the results that they were expecting, So there's not a lot of going back and trying to gather new information. But I don't know. I think that like, I guess as I'm talking out loud, I guess I would be summarizing it as the RSD is everything that happens inside the classroom or inside the lab, and the framework for information literacy is everything that connecting that to everything that happens outside.
Oh, that's interesting. It's very interesting. So, Renee, do you have any thoughts? Have you been impacted by our community of practice?
Well, quite honestly, I've been impacted from day one. So all those years ago when we started talking about RSD, when we brought in John and others to help us learn more about it. And I think the reason I was so impacted was that, quite honestly, I was one of those teachers who made a lot of assumptions. I assumed that since I was primarily teaching juniors and seniors in several classes, that they already knew how to do research, right? So I have found the RSD to be incredibly enlightening and eye-opening as far as getting me to think about that whole process of how we teach people to do research, and then especially the expectations associated with it. Then when Jessie came on board and she was sharing with us about information literacy, that was very eye-opening. And in my capacity as director of the Teaching and Learning Center here, I have ever since then really engaged all of the library to be part of like our new instructor training, because I think it is so crucial to be thinking about both the undergraduate research and how we do it in an effective and quality way, as well as how we engage students with helping them to better understand about information literacy. So yes, I drank the Kool-Aid.
Yay! All right. So, any other thoughts on this one? All right, so let's start talking about our takeaways. So we want to start taking a look just at the community of practice as a whole. So this gets back to kind of Jessie and I poking at evaluating the community of practice. So we've got 3 items to explore here. So what, if any, parts of this community of practice were of value to you during the year?
For me, the length and the sustained commitment was great. I mean, kudos to you and Jessie for just planning out, okay, we're going to stick with this for a whole year instead of just having an hour webinar. So thank you for doing that.
Yep. So why was that helpful for you?
I think it's hard for me to make time for this sort of professional development. I always feel like I'm running around and spinning plates, and it's easy to brush aside the need to do this sort of work. But I felt accountable to my group, and even though I didn't do many of the assignments, I couldn't muster up that much, but I tuned in, or I checked in, and that really helped.
Mm-hmm. Dustin, anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, I really like just being introduced to the new ways of thinking about how students are learning research and these things, and then just so like the like Kristen was saying, the sustained opportunities to kind of just force you to try it out and apply it, instead of just saying if it was just a one-off, oh, that's really interesting, and then it gets buried in a folder somewhere. But having the chance to really try it out, actually change things in classes really helped a lot.
Okay, good. Renee, anything for you?
Yes. Since I have been fortunate and privileged to be part of this since the very beginning, what I have seen is this amazing transition where you've got starting out with campus people and watching that grow, watching you as a facilitator and other facilitators become much more knowledgeable of RSD, right? And then the fact that you and Jesse came up with this idea of taking it so much broader, and just the fact that you pulled that off and you were consistent and committed with it. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks. So I did find out that this is much easier to do with 2 people than with 1. I know that I was, as Jesse transitioned out, I started to become more engaged with the framework for information literacy, trying to become an expert with it quickly. But I would have to say that I really value the connections and the people that I made. So much with the other communities of practice, I feel like I have some go-to people to talk to when I'm struggling with frameworks for information literacy or looking for ideas for the RSD. Particularly what I was thrilled about is looking at how the science and math folks, particularly science folks, see the RSD, because it's different than the social sciences. So it was really interesting to hear your take on it, Dustin, and I appreciate that. And Kristen, it was great to have your insights on the framework for information literacy. So it was great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I loved having the library and faculty conversations. I mean, that was a huge benefit for me.
Good. Yeah, and I even need to think about how to start to re-engage the library folks here, because Jesse was our go-to person, so I need to redevelop those linkages here as well. So, and Dustin, some of your stories about how you were trying to connect and what your strategies were, and Jesse's suggestions are very helpful for me as well. So
I think also kind of talking about what Renee brought up, by you widening the scope of this project, I think we could all say we don't feel so alone, right? I mean, it was great. I saw some reflections of librarians and some introductions of they're facing absolutely the same things that I am. And I bet, you as faculty felt the same way.
Mm-hmm. That's actually one of the reasons Jesse and I started it, because we were presenting and they were like, I'm really interested in this, but I'm the only one on my campus who's doing this. And so there was a lot of feedback about how people were interested in the framework, but they were working in isolation and really had nowhere to go or people to bounce ideas off of. So anyway. Okay, so how did this community of practice change you folks? Did it change you? For me, I'm more literate in the framework for information literacy. I would like to say I'm a bit more confident, but I am by no means an expert. So,
yeah, I definitely have more confidence.
And confidence in reaching out, confidence in the framework for information literacy, confidence where?
Reaching out, having these kind of conversations on my campus, and the activities, like having something concrete. That was something with the scaffolding that you and Jesse built, where you created recordings of you doing the activities, modeling, and then having us do it. That's like really, really valuable.
Renee or Dustin?
Yeah, I think like you were saying, I'm a lot more literate with both frameworks. I'd never heard of the frameworks before this, and yeah, it's been a good context to put everything that I'm doing, both in the class I'm concentrating on and also in the research that I'm doing outside of class. Just, it's instead of it being a simple like this student is good at research or this student is not good at research, you can break it down a lot further, and that really helps guide the students along so they can be good in all aspects.
Great.
Even also just designing activities to target different aspects of the framework. I think that's also valuable instead of just, really helps if I'm trying to teach research skills in a class to be able to break it down and say, okay, this is, we have to learn all the different aspects of research. And
Yep.
Dustin, that reminds me of when I did the training with the composition instructors and how they were saying, good writing can be learned. Say, good research can be learned, because it's very easy for a student to say, I'm not a good writer, right?
Yeah.
So that's really helpful to reframe it.
Dustin and Kristen, are you on Wisconsin campuses?
Mm-mm. I'm in North Dakota, University of North Dakota.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask to preference what I'm about to say, but before y'all logged on, I was talking with Sylvia, and one of the things that I take away from all of the work on RSD and the information literacy is that in my administrative role, I have a lot of responsibilities with the UW system. And I know that in the very near future, there's going to be a big push on our campuses to go very deep into at least two particular high impact practices.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those will be undergraduate student research.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sharing with Sylvia that I would hate to bring that on this campus without having her knowledge and the knowledge of others who've worked on RSD for a long time and information literacy. I think it's crucial to weave that in.
Yes.
So that when we do work with faculty and we ask them to now do very much deeper assessments on the high impact practices they're doing, that it is based on something really sound, such as the RSD framework and information literacy. So I would say that it's had a huge impact.
Do you want me to connect you with our person here who is grappling with the same thing?
Well, yes, if you're willing to share that. I will say that in the UW system, our campuses have had a long history with high impact practices, but now we're going to be asked to really look at that assessment. So are they learning what we hoped or think they should be learning? So
yeah, I think the person I'm thinking of it would be worth talking with him.
All right, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. I appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, so what difference has the community of practice made to your teaching practice and or life? For me, I started incorporating the RSD in the framework for information literacy. And at the beginning of the year, I was telling everybody how I was getting frustrated with students not really owning their learning. And so I've used both frameworks. This is my second semester incorporating it into this one class in particular and getting students to embrace learning. And last semester, there was a bit of pushback or kind of amazement, not in a good way, by the students that I was not giving them any direction, and they had to go. Learning was their responsibility, not my responsibility, and they wanted to be told what to do. And it ended well enough, but not without some frustration in between. And this semester, I don't know if it's because I got better at introducing the framework for information literacy and RSD, if it's because they had been told what to expect, if it's the group of students, but they were all a lot happier this semester. And just the other day, a student was asking me a question and I was smiling, and I said, I know that you really want me to give you an answer and you would like me to direct the yes/no question. And they're like, yeah, I know, but you're not going to do it. And they seem to be more accepting of responsibility for their own learning and less resistant. So I'm going to continue down that path and trying to make things clearer for them. But things seem to be going better this semester than the first time around. And my class is as Dustin said when he started my class right now looks totally different than it did 3 years ago. So, and I continue. So I've incorporated the framework for information literacy some more. So for me, that's what made the difference. Anybody have any other thoughts? All right, well, we'll go to the next item then. So one of the things that we need to talk about is staying connected. And I don't know if we introduced you to the Rescative WordPress blog at the beginning of the semester. But if you take this web address and type it in, there is a blog that John Willison and I are co-posters. It's actually John Willison's blog, and I post to it once in a while. And what you see here is from September of 2018, I announced that our online community of practice was beginning. So that's right now the second piece on the blog post. But if you go there are lots of conversations about the RSD framework. And if you join, you can post comments too. So I'm going to give you that as a place to go to post comments, participate, etc.
Thanks.
In the current module, I have posted a Word document that has a resource list. So that resource list has a blog that we did here with our first community of practice that also links to this Rescative WordPress community of practice. And there's just other sources for guidelines and manuals and things like that. The University of the South Pacific has some good materials as well. So there's that. Are there other suggestions or ways that you folks would like to stay connected?
Sylvia, you're not planning on taking down the site. I can't remember what the platform is.
No, I think the website is we've got the YouTube videos and the website. Still will only be accessible to this community.
Mm-hmm.
But I am going to talk to John Willison. I have to schedule a Zoom meeting with him, but as I forget if it was you I was talking to, Kristen, or somebody else, but I was thinking about doing some videos because I know even some instructors here, like my students, just aren't getting this, and to try to get some videos posted that people could maybe reference. So I thought about doing that. And thinking about it and doing it then, of course, are two different things. So
How long ago was John? I'm assuming he was at your institution.
yeah, he's
How long ago?
He's been here twice.
Okay.
He did the main workshop. Renee, you can correct me, but was that December of 2014 when he was here?
Okay.
Well, he's actually been here 3 times. He's actually been here 3 times.
Okay.
So one was a summer.
Oh, that's right, he was. So what?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one, he came here just to tell us about the RSD framework. He was on his way to a conference. That might have been 2013. Then was it the summer of 2014 and the winter of 2015? I don't know.
It probably was. I lose track of time, but yes, it's probably been at least 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
We did that.
Well, I'd say if you brought him back again, I certainly would take a road trip.
Okay. All right.
And I'd get some other people,
Sure.
from here.
All right.
You have to watch Sylvia. She can talk you into hosting symposiums.
True.
Yep. I've twisted people's arms, so it might be interesting. We could host them at your institution, and we could go there. So
yeah,
I wonder. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it would take to get him back. I'll ask him that.
Yeah.
All right.
I forget, Dustin. Where are you located?
I'm in Utah, at Utah Valley University.
Okay.
And John and
that's a much longer road trip.
Well, John and I actually did something at your university a couple years ago, Dustin, and that we did a workshop on the RSD.
Okay, yeah, that would have been before I got here.
Yeah, and so there was a group of about 10 or 12 faculty members. So I actually flew out there, and John logged in remotely, and we co-facilitated a workshop, but he was on either Zoom or Skype, I forget which one, and I was in the room, but we co-facilitated, which was really interesting because John was participating in the middle of the night. There's like a 12 or 14-hour difference. So it was 3 p.m. he in Utah, and it was 3 a.m. where he was, and so he would camp out and take a nap for an hour or two and log back on, and it worked. It was interesting.
Okay, that's good to know that that's an option.
Yeah. So any other suggestions? All right, if not, congratulations, we are done. And so we need to celebrate. Yay! So if there's anything people need, please feel free to reach out. If you have any ideas, if you want to connect, reconnect, whatever, please feel free to stay in touch. So I'm going to miss seeing you guys every other Tuesday.
I know.
So
I know. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So best of luck, everybody. And if there's any other parting words anybody wants to say, or
just thank you so much, Sylvia, for all the
Thank you.
Yep. So you're welcome. So hopefully we'll all be able to continue and get going with the RSD and the FIL, and our classes will be amazing and awesome. And so, all right, well, best of luck to everybody, and thanks for all your time and effort in doing the final exercises. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All righty.
Thanks.
Yeah. Have
Bye-bye.
a great summer. Bye-bye.
Bye.